Well, half of the Ultimate Finals roster has been set, so now it's time for the other half to be filled. Hey everybody, welcome to day number 10 of the Custom Mario Mail-In Tournament. Here is the first group running today. Number 58, Koopa Dragster at 98.94 grams. At number 10, Flip Gambino, 80.10 grams. Number 21, Noob Racing, 101.81 grams. And number 20, Arlo, at 106.5 grams. Now you may notice that at least 3 of these racers have adopted a similar strategy where the racer is near the front or the back of the car as opposed to the middle, which seems to be a good strategy because all of them are here and they all adopted that similar style aside from possibly Noob Racing. The other thing of note is that 2 of these racers are of the remaining 3 that are still undefeated, so one of them is about to lose that position right here and now, and it looks like it might be Arlo, as Flip Gambino, who also holds the record for the fastest time right now, takes the lead and the win. So Arlo, in the first race of his during the grand finals, is now no longer undefeated, so we are down to 2 racers, that being Flip Gambino and Numbskull, who was undefeated in a very unusual set of circumstances, which we'll get to in a little bit. And remember, the top 2 can still move on to the Ultimate Finals. So even if Arlo was no longer undefeated, they can still have a shot at being in the Ultimate Finals alongside possibly Flip Gambino or somebody else. As we get into race number 2, Arlo is trying to catch back up to Flip Gambino. It looks like they're relatively even. Koopa Dragster is right behind him though, and as we get into the lane merger, Flip takes a bit of a bigger lead now. And as we get into another lane split, it looks like Flip Gambino's lead just keeps growing and growing. But now we're on that last turn, it almost looked like Arlo closed the gap a little bit, and Arlo was not thrilled with having his undefeated streak taken away from him, so he did the same back to Flip Gambino in that race. It looked like Flip was gonna have it, but then he spun around, lost control, and Arlo saw his window and took it. Not only that, but Koopa Dragster also passed him at the last second, causing Flip to finish in 3rd in that race. Meanwhile, Noob Racing has some major work to do. But we'll see if them being the one racer that is sitting in the middle of the vehicle will do them any good. In this race, as we get back into lane mergers, Flip does have the lead, but as we saw, just because you have the lead now does not mean that you'll hold on to it for the entire race. Sometimes some last-minute surprises will happen, and other racers will take advantage of that. Thankfully for Flip, though, he does keep straight that time, and he takes the race win, while Arlo finishes in 2nd, which is still very respectable in a situation like this. I think everybody finished. I only saw 3 of them, but maybe... Okay, so Noob Racing was actually relatively closer that time. And I don't think anybody has beaten Flip Gambino's fastest time yet, but they are certainly getting pretty close. 1 heat left. Right now, the person with the highest points is Flip Gambino with 12, but Arlo is right behind him with 11. Koopa Dragster currently has 7, and Noob Racing only has 3. So looking like Noob Racing will not be continuing in this tournament, but the fact that they got to the grand finals is definitely a wonderful accomplishment. But here comes Flip Gambino trying to stay straight again, kind of fishtailing a little, and they spin around the same spot as they did before. But they were able to at least stay straight by going backwards, and they took that race win, while Arlo finished in 2nd. And it looks like we have a non-finish, which actually goes to Koopa Dragster. He somehow wound up on his side, and Noob Racing was able to finish in better than 4th, but unfortunately it's not going to be enough, as Flip Gambino and Arlo will be moving on to today's finals. In the second group, we have an RAF racer. We have Numbskull at 112.01 grams. Number 12, Rainer Racing, 50.16 grams. And number 14, 41-14 Racing at 110 grams. Now this is definitely somewhat an unusual circumstance, as we touched on before, because Numbskull and RAF were in a previous group. And Numbskull raced pretty much nothing but RAFs when they were in the qualifiers for the grand finals. But thankfully, Numbskull remained undefeated against all those RAFs, and now they are here, currently with the lead. I don't know if those wings are helping or not, but all that matters right now is that they are in first. And they're trying to stay undefeated, because I think now they are the only one who is. And so far, that remains true. Meanwhile, RAF Toad finishes in second. I'm not sure how everybody's going to feel about this racer being here, considering it's essentially a ghost racer. In replacement for somebody who had an entry, but didn't use it. Or something along that line. I'm not entirely sure of the technicalities there, and we have seen the comments of what we should do with RAF racers, especially for people who didn't qualify originally, and it looks like a new strategy will be adopted for future tournaments. This one will remain as is for now, but this will be taken into consideration for future RAF racers. Right now, though, in this race, Numbskull is trying to stay undefeated like he did with this other RAF, and they are side by side going into that finish, but RAF used the infamous nose block, and now I believe, ladies and gentlemen, no one in this tournament is undefeated. We also have a non-finisher again, and this time it looks to be Rainer Racing. Yeah, that is definitely a finish to remember, whether for better or worse, but yeah, I'm sure nobody wants to see that RAF finish if Numbskull gets gypped. So once again, if you feel like doing so, in the comments, just shout out justice for Numbskull. Because now we also have no undefeated racers, and part of that is because of RAF. I should say RAF Toad, but I think that one's the only RAF racer left. But Numbskull is not happy with being dethroned as an undefeated racer, and now they have a decent-sized lead. The question now is, will they be able to hold on to it? Because Toad seems to be coming up behind them, but it may not be enough, as Numbskull does finish in first yet again. And RAF somehow ended up backwards, same thing with Reyna, but everybody was able to finish that time. It was actually all relatively close, because sometimes we have 2 or 3 racers that do really well and 1 or 2 that just fall far behind. But thankfully that wasn't the case here, keeping it a little more interesting. Into race number 3, it's mostly back and forth between Numbskull and RAF Toad. I'm sure Numbskull would like to see RAF go home, but I don't know if that'll happen this time around. But Numbskull is set to move on at this point, because he does have 13, while RAF Toad has 11, and the other 2 have only 6 and 2 respectively, so it looks like it will be Numbskull moving on, but that RAF racer will be joining him. 41-14 did finish in second that time, but it's not enough. And once again, unfortunately, Rainer Racing just could not get to the finish line. Not how they wanted to be removed from this tournament, I'm sure. But again, the fact that they got to the grand finals is a wonderful thing. But yes, Numbskull and RAF will be moving on. So ladies and gentlemen, our roster for the Ultimate Finals is now set. Thank you for watching. We'll see you there.